I think the security situation in Plateau at the moment is, especially in Bokos and Mangu local governments, has actually been bad for these few days. The STF and other security agencies had done a great job in curbing the insecurity in those two local governments, especially when it broke down towards Christmas and the rest. But unfortunately, you have what we call crisis entrepreneurs, whose business and stock and trade is making a lot of fortune out of crisis, and so they do not want peace to prevail. Some of these things, like rightly pointed out by colleagues either in the studio or in Kaduna, is that the social media too has not done anything good. There's so much that comes out of the social media that if you read and you are not somebody with a good heart, you think the world is collapsing the same day. There is also the collapse of the social, normative social order in actually in Nigeria, because where you find out that the social order, where you had elders, you had youth and children and the rest, and there was respect for people were their brothers keepers, is no more. Coupled with the fact that in Plateau here, you know, the climate change situation has made it so difficult for the nomadic people to have good pasture for their lands up north, and then the insecurity around Zamfara and Beringwari area, Kasina and the rest, were the desertification pushing them. So there is a lot of pressure. If you look at Plateau, Benue, the Middle Belt area, there's a lot of pressure here, where there is a contest for land and water between farmers and herders. So some of these things are part of the cumulative effects of climate change. But in fact, the important thing is that we have not been able to get the grasp of what we are supposed to do, probably understanding the problems, because if you get the narrative wrong, and some of these narratives are driven by the social media, you will not get to know, to do the correct thing, because if your diagnosis is wrong, you'll be treating malaria instead of treating typhoid fever. So I think what we need to do as a people is to sit down and agree that, look, we have a real problem. Criminality is taking over both in the social space and in government. And there are those who are even in government, they are protecting criminals outside there. So I think there's a need for, on our own side, to make sure that criminals are exposed, criminals are not given breathing spaces. If you see what happened in Oyo State, that's a classical example of where the community itself is resilient and do not want criminals to give them space. When those Yoruba agitators stormed the Oyo State House of Assembly, you could see that the citizens resisted them. The citizens rose up in unison, pointing out to the houses of those who they suspected, or those who were involved in those criminal acts, or those not even just criminal, but they are quite a treasonable act. They brought them out, they shot them out, and then their houses were demolished and the rest. So it means the society itself has to rise up against these criminals. And government seem not to be understanding the situation. So it all depends, again, like we pointed out, if it's time for governance now, it's no more time for politicking. It's time to heal the wounds of what came out prior to the elections. It's time to make sure that everybody is part and parcel of the society. And it's time for good governance now, both at the local level and at the state level. We do not expect the federal government to come and take over governance at the local level and at the state level. And sometimes people seem to think that the federal agents are all over. It's not possible. Even in China or India, where they have armed forces in millions, They do not. They can't cover everywhere. It is a society itself that will be able to police itself, and that's why I say there's a breakdown of the social order. Because if you have a criminal society, they bring him. They have a way of punishing criminals. They have a way of even doing alternative dispute resolutions. They have a way of even judging people who have done something that is bringing dishonor and shame to the community. But these days, you find out that even the parents are involved in criminal acts and their children are seeing them. And so when these children see them, they think that's the normal thing to do. So if your father is doing something that is bad, I mean, it's nothing to a child. It's something that is good. So I think even the parents itself, like I've always been saying, we must take back our society from criminals. And because you don't even understand why, if you saw what happened in Birnin, is what we call scorch the earth method. If you go there...
All right, Brigadier